Attraction is not random. It only feels random when you don't understand the system underneath it. Because mating is one of the most ancient games humans play, and your brain did not evolve to make you feel good while playing it. It evolved to win, not in a modern sense, in an evolutionary sense. Survive, reproduce, avoid costly mistakes. That means what you call chemistry often has less to do with romance than you think, and far more to do with hidden economics. Costs, benefits, risk, opportunity, competition. And once you see dating through that lens, everything changes. Rejection becomes less personal. Confidence stops being a mystery, and your results become less dependent on luck and more dependent on how well you understand the market you are operating in. So in this video, I'm going to give you the economic model of human attraction, not money, evolutionary economics, the trade-offs your brain is making even when you think you're just feeling. Most people talk about dating like it's a spiritual experience, like attraction is a magical signal between souls. That's a nice story. It's also incomplete, because underneath the poetry, your brain is doing accounting. It is evaluating potential reward against potential cost. It is scanning for cues. It is running calculations you never consciously see. This is why people can feel drawn to someone they cannot explain, why they can lose interest without knowing why, and why rejection can feel like physical pain, even when nothing actually happened. That isn't romance. That's an evolved system trying to protect your genes. Now, the first economic fact you need to understand is this. Men and women do not face the same minimum costs in reproduction. This is the foundation. In evolutionary biology, this is often framed through parental investment theory, associated with Robert Trivers. The idea is straightforward. The sex that pays the higher minimum cost per child tends to become choosier. The sex that pays less tends to compete more for access. In humans, women pay the higher minimum biological cost. Pregnancy is expensive, childbirth is expensive, a child is dependent for years. Historically, a poor choice could mean extreme suffering. So, selection favored female caution and selectivity. Men, in contrast, can reproduce at a lower minimum biological cost. That does not mean men do not invest. It means that the baseline economics are asymmetric. And asymmetry shapes strategy. This is why the male experience often includes more pursuing and more rejection. Not because men are weak, because men are the competing sex in a system where the chooser has higher downside risk. And research has repeatedly shown this pattern. There are famous field studies where strangers were approached with direct offers, and men were far more likely to say yes than women. You don't need to memorize the details. You need the takeaway. Male mating strategy, on average, is more open to short-term opportunity. Female strategy, on average, is more selective, especially in higher-risk contexts. That is economics. Now add the second economic fact. Mate choice is not a moral process. It is not fair. It is not designed to make everyone feel valued. It is a filter. Filters are ruthless. They exist to exclude. This is why people hate dating markets, because markets are honest. They reveal value through behavior, not through what people claim, not through what people wish were true, through what they choose. So if you want to level up, you have to stop thinking like a romantic and start thinking like a strategist. Because strategy is how you operate inside a market. Now, let's define the market. A mating market is simply the pool of potential partners and the competition for them. And like any market, two forces matter most: supply, demand. When there are many male bids and fewer female acceptances, rejection becomes normal for men. When female choice is selective, a man's ability to generate opportunities becomes a major factor in outcomes. This is why men who wait passively often lose. Not because they are bad men, because the market rewards exposure and initiative. That is the third economic fact. Opportunity is not evenly distributed, it is created. Most men do not lose because they are inherently undesirable. They lose because they do not create enough attempts for probability to work. They treat each attempt like a final exam. So they attempt rarely. And when you attempt rarely, rejection feels catastrophic. because each attempt carries emotional weight. This creates the trap. Low attempts, high emotional pressure, more avoidance, even fewer attempts. If you want one simple formula, here it is. Results equal probability per attempt multiplied by number of attempts. Probability per attempt is influenced by your mate value. Number of attempts is influenced by your exposure. Most men obsess over the first and ignore the second. They tell themselves, I'll approach when I'm more confident. I'll talk to women when I'm in better shape. I'll start dating seriously when I make more money. That sounds responsible. It is also a way to avoid risk, because the second lever, exposure, is immediate. It forces contact with rejection, and rejection still triggers ancient fear. So men rationalize avoidance as self-improvement. Improve yourself is good advice, but if you use it as a substitute for exposure, you are simply delaying the same problem. Now, what is mate value? Mate value is not self-esteem. It is not what you think you deserve. It is market feedback. It is how others evaluate you based on cues they are wired to care about. Some of those cues are obvious: physical condition, grooming, posture, voice, health signals. Some cues are social, status, competence, confidence, leadership, social proof, the sense that others value you. Some cues are contextual, the environment you're in, the role you're playing, the group you belong to, the lifestyle you project. Cross-cultural research in evolutionary psychology, associated with David Buss, found that certain preference patterns tend to repeat across many societies, even though culture shapes the surface. The takeaway is not that people are identical. The takeaway is that certain cues carry reliable signaling value, and markets reward signals. Now, here is where people get seduced by tactics. They think, if mate value is a bundle of signals, maybe I can fake the signals. Maybe there is a line or a routine that triggers attraction. This is the point where the whole industry of scripts enters. But scripts fail for a simple reason. Human mate choice is not a keypad where you type the right code. It is a complex system. Preferences vary, context matters, timing matters, a woman's internal state matters, her risk assessment matters, her current life strategy matters. Even within the research literature, you see evidence that preferences can shift with context and life stage, and in some lines of research, even with biological cycles. You don't need to go deep into the debate, you just need the outcome. Attraction is not a single mechanism, it is layered. So scripts give an illusion of control, but they do not solve the real problem. The real problem is that you are trying to solve a market problem with a sentence. Markets do not care about sentences. Markets care about value and access. Now, access is where modern men misunderstand the environment. Your ancestors lived in small groups. If you failed socially, it followed you. Rejection was expensive. That is why your body reacts so strongly to it. But modern environments massively reduce the cost of rejection. In a city, most interactions are with strangers. A rejection does not spread through your tribe. It does not damage your survival. It usually does not damage your future opportunities. It is often forgotten quickly. So the cost structure changed. But your nervous system has not fully updated. This is evolutionary mismatch. Your brain is acting as if you live in a world where social errors are permanent. So it overprices risk. It treats a simple no like a threat. That is why approach anxiety feels physical. It is an ancient alarm. Now, if you accept the economic reality, the correct strategy becomes obvious. In low-cost environments, sampling is rational, not perfection. Sampling, repeated attempts, low emotional attachment to any single outcome, because probability needs volume. This is where your mindset shifts. You stop seeing a conversation as a high-stakes audition. You start seeing it as a low-cost trial, and you stop demanding certainty from a probabilistic system. Now, another economic factor that matters is competition. In mating markets, you are not competing against all men. You are competing against the alternative options she perceives. That could be other men. It could be her friends. It could be her freedom. It could be her standards. It could be her risk aversion. So when men say there are too many competitors, they often overestimate the reality. What matters is not global competition. It is local context, your niche, your environment, your positioning. This is why the same man can be invisible in one setting and magnetic in another. Markets have segments. In one segment, you may be average. In another, you may be high value. So a smart approach is not just more exposure. It is exposure in environments that fit your strengths. Now let's bring in the concept that makes this feel personal. Because economics can sound cold, but you are living it emotionally. The concept is self-esteem as a gauge. Sociometer theory, associated with work by Mark Leary and others, frames self-esteem as a monitor of social acceptance and social value. In other words, your self-esteem is partly tracking how included you feel, how valued you feel. And in mating, that gauge becomes extremely sensitive, because mating is tied to status and belonging. So when you get rejected, your sociometer can drop, not because you are worthless, because your brain interprets rejection as exclusion, and exclusion used to be dangerous. So the pain is real, but it is not always accurate. It is a signal designed for ancestral conditions. The upgrade is to stop letting the signal dictate your strategy. You can feel the sting and still act rationally. That is what mature confidence looks like. Not the absence of emotion, the ability to act in spite of it. Now there is one more economic principle that almost nobody teaches: opportunity cost. Every time you avoid an attempt, you are not staying neutral. You are paying a price. Because you are losing exposure, you are losing volume, you are losing practice, you are losing the chance for probability to work. So avoidance is not safety, it is cost. And that cost compounds. It compounds into years, into missed relationships, into settling, into living smaller than you need to. This is why the line that should live in your head is this: rejection is often cheap, avoidance is expensive. Now, does this mean you become reckless? No. It means you become calibrated, you approach respectfully, you keep it brief, you read cues, you give an easy exit, you don't chase a no, you move on cleanly. That is socially competent, that is not harassment. And the better your calibration, the less friction you create for her, and the less emotional friction you create for yourself. Now, if you're wondering where mate value fits into all of this, here is the truth. Mate value matters, but most men overestimate how high it needs to be before they can start creating opportunities. Because value is not one number, it is situational, and exposure itself can increase value, not directly, but indirectly. Because exposure changes behavior, it reduces fear, it increases fluency, it improves social timing, it makes you calmer, and calm is a signal. Desperation is a signal too. So when you act as if you have abundance, you begin to look like someone who has abundance. That's the paradox. Many men wait to feel abundant before acting. But abundance in your mind often comes from behaving as if you have it, then collecting evidence that the world is survivable. Now let's make the economic model concrete. If you want better results, you work on both levers. Increase probability per attempt by improving mate value, health, fitness, style, competence, income, social circle, lifestyle. Not to impress strangers, to become the man you respect, and also because markets reward those improvements. Then increase attempts, exposure, conversations, introductions, social events, approaches, channels. Because probability without attempts is wasted potential, and attempts without probability becomes unnecessary suffering. You want both. Now, there is something freeing about seeing dating as economics. It removes the drama. You stop making it spiritual. You stop making it mystical. You stop making it about your identity. You see it as a system. Systems can be learned. Systems can be navigated. That is why this model is powerful, because if you don't understand the system, you blame yourself. If you understand the system, you adjust strategy. So the hidden economics of human mating is this. Mating is cost-benefit analysis shaped by evolved constraints. Female selectivity is not cruelty. It is strategy under asymmetric risk. Male competition is not failure. It is the structure of the market. Rejection is not a verdict. It is the price of entry. Mate value is real because markets respond to signals. Exposure is essential because opportunity is created. And avoidance is costly because it steals volume. Once you accept those economics, you stop playing emotionally. You start playing intelligently. Here's the takeaway. Attraction is not magic. It is an evolved economic system. Your brain is constantly weighing potential reward against potential cost, even when you think you are just feeling. The market is asymmetric. Women tend to be more selective because the historical costs of a poor choice were higher. Men tend to face more rejection because competition is built into the structure of the market. So stop taking rejection personally. It is often just the system working as designed. Then remember the formula. Results equal probability per attempt multiplied by number of attempts. Raise probability by improving mate value over time. Raise attempts by increasing exposure immediately, and stop confusing avoidance with safety. Avoidance has an opportunity cost, and that cost compounds. So if you want one line to live by, let it be this. Rejection is cheap. Avoidance is expensive.